Hello, everybody.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. You got me saying good morning.
Hey, it's okay.
Good evening, everyone.
It's morning somewhere, right?
This morning, so that is correct.
Peace and good evening.
Evening.
Matter of fact,
Good evening.
I just actually talked to somebody about an hour ago who it is morning for because they're 13 hours ahead of us. So
Yeah.
it is morning for somebody.
Yup.
Yeah.
Good
Everybody,
evening, Lauren from Whitby, Ontario.
hello. Good evening on YouTube as well. All right, guys. So if anybody has any particular questions about anything, if you guys could throw it in the chat. Good evening, everybody that's spoke in the chat. Vanessa, Teresa West, David Bazemore. Anybody that has any questions, if you throw them in the chat, and Sharanda Ivy or myself will be able to grab those questions at some point and bring them up during the training. So hopefully everybody's doing good. As soon as I know Sharanda is available, I know she's here, but I think she might be on another call. We'll do our introductions, and as a matter of fact, I can do mine while she's handling her other situation. Then we'll go start having some little bit of communication about a couple things that's going on. So hope you guys start your week off good. I am Robert Dunbar, been with Legal Shield for 14 years, been training for about 8 years. Love the company, love their the membership, what it does, how it engages, and all those great things. Been on different areas and worked in different areas of the company. Here in my 14-year tenure, spent I guess my first 7 to 8 years doing network marketing. Yeah, and when I hit about 40, I didn't have the patience for people no more, so I started doing business solutions. So I know some of y'all feel that. So I moved over to B2B, and I've been over here ever since, working with them insurance agents and companies and groups and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at now. And we're just here to help you guys build in the CDLP space, because it is a little bit different over here than it is on a regular group side. So this Monday night training hopefully will help you get some more work done on the CDLP side. So I would talk about a little bit of conversation about some introductions. I may have a couple of people mention some intros that they do when they're going into a company, walking into a company, going into a group that was maybe given to them by corporate as a conservation group or things of that nature. Like, how do you start those different conversations? What do you know about the proposed CSA score changes? I don't know a whole bunch about it, but I'm sure Sharanda does, because Sharanda's kind of in that space. I will tell you this about the score changes though here in a second. I'll tell you some general about them, but Sharanda could probably answer some more detailed information on that when she opens up her mic. So I am a 100K ringer under BIM. I got 2 50K ringers on my team, and just kind of spent some time in different areas. So I don't know a lot about the changes that's going to happen in proposed in the CSA, but I will tell you this, and this is a good question too, Edwin. That was a good question. I'm going to answer this question a little bit on the side of just doing business and doing sales, on that side a little bit. And whenever Sharanda opens up her mic, she may have some more details because she's in a logistics arena. So she might have some more detailed answers on there. But I will tell you this, do not let things like that rock your boat. Does that make sense, guys? And don't let it rock your boat in the sense of your process is your process. And what we're doing with this membership is going to be beneficial either way, because their CSA scores are highly likely going to still be affected by what that driver does on or off
Get
duty.
down.
Makes sense. And what I want you to think about is don't let, because there's a lot of, I mean, you guys, I don't even have to ask you to put a show of hands. I know, because I've been on here so long with so many of y'all. You know how many changes they make in this industry. And at the end of the day, they're going to continue to make a whole lot of changes in this industry because that's just what they do. But we can stand steady on what it is, what we're doing, because what we're saying is, no matter what happens, I would imagine, without having the facts, Edwin, I would imagine that this is going to still happen. If they're doing something wrong, they're going to get pulled over. And they're going to need an attorney to go to court. And if it's not an attorney in court, they stand less of a chance of getting a better outcome. So we're still going to be able to do what we do. I don't want you to get too caught up on the CSA scores, just because when you start getting really deep into the CSA scores, you'll find yourself going down this dark tunnel of knowledge that's not really going to benefit you when it comes time to make a sale. There's a certain level of knowledge that you should probably stop at, unless you're going to go into logistics full. Like Sharanda ended up, she did a deep dive into logistics, open up a logistics company. So her knowledge base has gotten that great because of that reason. But if you're just marketing the plan, I want you guys to kind of, put your head in a rabbit hole to see what's going on down there, but don't jump down there because you'll get lost down there. The real particulars of the CSA score aren't as much of a deal as it is the concept of that driver gets violated. It affects the company's DOT number. The company cannot go to court for the company. They're really representing the driver who got pulled over. So that's why our membership makes sense. So I'm just gonna pick a random name off of the out of the gallery here that I'm looking at. So let's take who do I see? That's Norman. I see Norman's camera on. So if Norman was the trucking company, the object is still gonna be the same. His trucking company and his DOT number is riding on however many trucks that are out there with drivers in them. If those drivers get stopped, if they get violated and they don't have a good attorney in court representing them to reduce or get rid of that violation, then it's going to affect Norman's DOT number. And eventually, because it keeps happening, he may get audited, he may get shut down. And then the process of all that happening, his insurance might be going through the roof. His insurance going through the roof could possibly mean that his insurance company cuts him off because he's too risky, right? Or the insurance might get so high that he may not be able to afford having insurance to run the company, which means he has to go out of business. So that's still going to be the concept. So I just want you guys to, when y'all see those changes, like, don't worry about that. When you hear people talk about there's going to be automated trucks, is that going to put us out of business? It's not. Don't worry about that. Before 18-wheelers are driving around without any humans in them, most of the people on this call will probably be dead or not doing legal shield CDLP full time at that point. So it's not going to matter. So don't let that worry you. So I'm only saying that for those reasons, because those little small changes can sometimes make people think, oh, all of this work that I'm doing is not helpful. When it is. The work that you're doing is helpful. The knowledge that you have is helpful. And those CSA score changes are probably going to affect those drivers and those companies, but it could help us even more with the changes that they make. But we're going to certainly still be able to do what it is that we do for the company. So hopefully that helps. Sharanda, are you available? You still somewhere else?
No, I'm here. I
Oh,
think that was a good answer to that. Because again, like we say, most of the time people don't, when I say people, the carrier or the trucking company, they don't even understand the CSA score. So the changes that's going to happen, most of them still going to be confused. So, so I think, what you said is that it's true. Like, you can't focus on taking yourself down a rabbit hole because they're not even on the same path with you. So you just know that some changes are coming. If they don't even understand that, if you're going to approach them with that statement or that concern, make sure it's a company that you have truly researched and they having problems with their CSA scores, because that's your prospect. not the process, because everybody sees that the CSA, it is changing, and a lot of them just don't understand how those 7 deadly sins work anyway. And so they are gonna, do some integration and some other things. But if you have that, if you're having conversations now, and I know a lot of people on here are having conversations with trucking companies, they already know that half of their prospects don't even understand the CSA process. So whatever changes are coming, it's just going to confuse them more. But if you don't understand it and then you go to, lead with that and they're already confused, you might lose a sale because you can't even explain it either. So I would just say, just stick with the main thing. And I think we have enough foundation, just researching the company, knowing that the company already has some problems. It may show that they have more problems. But however, remember that your company is your best prospect is the company that is already having problems. So whatever change is coming, it ain't gonna make them better. So they're gonna always have CSA. They're always gonna have out of service numbers if they already got high CSA scores. So if you're doing what has already been taught, is to find a company that's already having problems, that's your prospect. Whether the change is coming now, it's not going to make their numbers better. If anything, it's going to make their numbers worse. So as long as you're already on that path, you have the right client. So stick with the main thing is my, suggestion.
Absolutely. I would also look at, like, when you guys are talking to these companies now, if you're prospecting fresh companies right now, unless you're somebody that's going to just go and learn that stuff because you want to anyway, we don't suggest you do that. But let's just say you do for the sake of conversation, then use it as a conversation piece if you feel like you know what you're talking about. But again, like Sharon is saying, if that company doesn't understand it, don't make that the conversation. So, because you're actually having a conversation with a company who doesn't understand CSA. And there's a lot of companies out there like that. So on this approach, sometimes we get in this headspace where I've got to find out what CSA is in general, right? And this is not even relating to Edwin's question, so to speak. This is in general. I got to figure out this CSA stuff because this is a great conversation to have. While that's the case, sometimes something that Sharanda was just saying a minute ago that you want to keep in mind, understand your customer, which goes back to the key result areas that we talked about a few weeks ago when we talked about the 7 key result areas of sales. One of the areas of sales is like understanding, right, the need of the prospect. And you have to know your prospect. So if I reach out to Stephanie and I just start running this whole CSA conversation that I practice and I feel like I know it so well. So I'm just having this whole fluent CSA conversation and Stephanie really doesn't understand her own CSA in her own company. Then it's like, now she's confused and a confused mind does nothing. So find out how in-depth the knowledge is of your prospect before you start talking over their head, thinking that you learned all this to have a conversation with them and they don't know. Because some of us learned that the hard way. I know Sharanda did, and I know I did in the beginning too. Because when I got so excited about hearing the CSA information, when Lamar Reynolds taught me the CSA information, I was all excited about it. So that was my line when I was calling company. It was CSA. I was using the CSA flyers, and it was all about the numbers, and it was like sometimes I would be talking to them because I was doing walk-ins. I wasn't doing a lot of calling. I was walking in. And because I study behavior, that's what I do in my other company. I'm looking at a person and I can tell that they're confused. I can tell that they're feeling like overwhelmed because I'm giving them something else to worry about. Does that make sense? Because I'm talking to them about something that they wasn't even concerned about because they didn't know. Now, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't and that I shouldn't have this conversation with them, but the way I was doing it, I was talking to them as if they already understood that, and they didn't. So just keep that in mind, that like piecemeal it a little bit. When you go to talk to them and kind of check out their behavior, right? Their body language. does it seem like this is something, and it's a little bit hard over the phone, I know, if you guys are just calling, but when you're walking in, I was doing a lot of walking, so I was able to kind of read the behavior a little bit. So when you get to some of those companies, some of them, you can tell it's a conversation that they want to have, that they're familiar with having, and some of them, they're kind of looking like, right, I caught myself a few times where I'm saying, I'll say something like, so Ms. Stephanie, you do, like, are you guys data queuing your violation citation before you've gone to court for them? And they're looking at me like, what do you mean by that? Like, they're kind of stuck. They don't want to answer the question. And I understood what that meant because I was taught that, and I was using that as a line to get into the company. And then I had to realize that, oh, okay, this person, right, they're either not data queuing, or the whole process of them going in and fighting the ticket first, and then data queuing, or having some other form of evidence to data queue with, they didn't have any of that. They were just data queuing because they thought if I get a violation, we just fight it, but they didn't really have any evidence. So they were losing and thinking that data queue didn't work. So if you're going in with that data queue conversation, or if you're getting violations and citations, and we can help data queue them, which we don't really help do, not on a large scale, so don't really say that, but I know that people are out there saying that we can help with data queue, and they're thinking, I've heard this response. And Sharanda, chime in when you get a chance if you've heard this, which I'm sure you have, and they're like, oh well, yeah, that it don't work, data queue don't work. And it's because they didn't data queue under the right circumstance. And in the beginning, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that either. I thought when they data queued, if they were right, they were right. And if they were wrong, they were wrong. And then I realized a little bit into understanding data queuing that, wait a minute, sometimes, or a lot of times, they got to data queue it several times, whether they're right or wrong. That's just the process. And Lamar taught me that, hey, look, when it comes to data queuing, it's a little bit more into it than that. So find out a little more information about the company. Find out what this is. Is it that person you're talking to that's doing the data queuing? Are they handed it off to somebody else? Right? Is there a law firm doing it? Find out a little bit more so that you can have the right conversation, because I think that helps your conversion rate a little bit better when it comes to that. Sharanda, anything on that?
Right. It's a lot of factors going into data queue. So, I mean, because you can be spinning your wheels and never get any solution. So, even though you can dispute everything, but I mean, do you have the knowledge? And that's where our plan comes into play. So people have to know how to use the plan to help the customer with that type of with the data queue process. And we don't talk about that in the training. So, it's best to wait till the client gets the service, and the driver or the owner coaches the driver to speak with the law firm about data queuing and things like that, because you don't see that in the plan offering. So again, just gotta keep the main thing the main thing. So
yeah, that's what that's at. So so Sharanda, what approaches have you gotten any conservation groups that were CDL?
what was the question?
Have you gotten any conservation groups that were CDL?
Yeah, I just recently did. I do. And
I'm only asking that question because I'm the approach. Like, this is a company that's already got the membership. And real quickly, so because just in case somebody don't know what conservation means, because I'm acting like everybody knows that. A conservation group is when corporate, I know the regionals used to give them to us. I believe the corporate is doing it now, where they give you a group that was opened at some point, and whoever was running that group is no longer running that group. Either they left Legal Shield or passed, or corporate has taken it because there was no activity. I don't know how that happened, but all I know is it ends up on your doorstep because corporate will call you with that group or put it in your PPLSI, your Shield business solutions area for you to work, or your regional will give it to you. The last few conservations I got directly from corporate. But so that's what the conservation group is. But the trick to a conservation group is that they've already been open. There's already been somebody working that group, and you don't know why nobody's been there. You don't know whether that person did something wrong and they're not interested in legal shield, or that person wasn't servicing the group correctly, whether the company just stopped answering the phone or stopped letting them in. You don't really know a whole bunch of details because there's normally not a whole lot of updates that's been on that company. So when you're going in with that, it's a little bit of a different approach. Sharanda, when you get those, like, what is your approach on that when you get a company that's a conservation that's already opened up?
I recently just got some, and so the same approach as if I was researching a company. I researched the company to see what their numbers were, and just reached out to them, and just let them know that I was a new commercial rep for their account with Legal Shield, and just wanted to speak with them about just their processes, what they were doing. Didn't really know how much. Well, I know where the group come from because my upline, he passed, so that's how I got these groups. So, and I knew he didn't know a whole lot about what we're taught here now. So I don't even think he talked about what we learned here in the space. But I talked to him the same way as if they were a new prospect, looking at their numbers, looking at the company. And I actually had a great conversation with, I didn't get but one gentleman on the phone. Had a great conversation. So I think he was just very pleased to talk to somebody that kind of understood, and could give him some insight. So we did have some conversation. He really doesn't have any new drivers, but just wanted to make sure he understood, the benefit, and make sure his drivers knew the benefit and how, just how to work it. But he and I talked mostly about, of course, the research that I had done with the company, and, just how he was handling things.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that's typically, that's interesting, because maybe you never had that conversation before. And that's typically the way I go in. I pull the company, I research the company the same way I would a brand new company, and just find out what's going on with the company. And I actually try to stay away from even mentioning whatever associate had it before me, because I just don't know what the relationship was. So I don't want to bring that person up or say anything about a past associate, because I don't know what kind of taste is going to leave in that person's mouth. I just call them and say, hey, look, our corporate office reached out to me to assist you guys, and I took a look at your safety score, and I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that, and I just go into that same pitch the same way I would if it was a brand new company that I had prospected. That's been the best result for me, and that ends up leading to a pretty decent conversation on that. So no, that's good. So is there any more questions about anything here? Hold on, let me scroll down before I ask that question. It might be something here. Okay, no, it's not there. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've already spoken about here? Either raise your electronic hand or raise your physical hand if you don't know where that's at. Going once. Going twice. All right, good. All right, so let's just go into like the general, that general pitch, which would be, most of us know when you're going into talk to a company or call a company. I always say going because that's what I normally do. But if you're going in or you're calling a company, kind of still, what are you saying? Are you guys still using the Lamar Reynolds line? Approach that we've talked about so many times. Have you guys kind of turned that into your own thing? I know Sharanda has turned it. Took the concept of that, but then turned it into her own kind of pitch. For y'all that know me, I pretty much don't say the same thing twice too much, because I just kind of feel the mood and I go in and I talk the way I talk, based on whatever mood I'm in, based on whether it's a gatekeeper or no gatekeeper. But there's different approaches that you can take. Sharanda, are you still like doing your spin off on Lamar's pitch, or have you done something different?
It's still off Lamar's pitch, just introducing myself and asking to speak to the person who handles the DOT violations. Just having that conversation with them by what I see on, from the research, and just being a little bit more knowledgeable now by being able to look at the violations to kind of know that, what type of problems they're having in the company, but because of the violations they're having. So really just trying to get to those concerns and what they have in place to help with the violations or to get those concerns taken care of so they don't get the violations. So that's normally where I'm at with that.
Gotcha. And I do still use that line that you just mentioned. Who's handling the DOT violations? I do still use that line just so I'm talking to the right person. But I generally will. My pitch normally depends on what I saw in CSA. If I saw accident situation, I may bring up the tragic accident because I saw that they had some tragic accidents. That may be something that I do. I also pitch based on whether or not it seems like the issue is, are their vehicles versus their actual drivers that's causing the problem. So if I see that their drivers are the reason that they're getting violations, I will normally start the conversation by asking them, so are you guys having a hard time finding good drivers? A lot of truck companies are having a hard time finding really good drivers. Is that something that you're experiencing? And normally that's a conversation they're open and talk about because it's so common in the industry. And really for me, it's just an icebreaker. It's not even about really going down that road because there's nothing I can do to get them better drivers, but it is a conversation that gets them talking, and then I can start talking about the kind of violations that they're getting based on that, and then try to wrap the conversation up by saying, hey, look, you may not be able to get the best drivers right now, but you want to make sure that the drivers are protected because whatever they're out there doing, you want to make sure they got a great shot in court when it comes down to fighting the moving traffic violations or whatever they're getting, so it's not affecting your score so bad. So I will lean on pulling that CSA score and looking at, hey, vehicle issues, driver issues. Are there any tragic accidents going on? Have y'all had any lately? If it's a bigger company, normally the smaller companies, not as much. And that's normally where I go with my presentation based on that. Because I kind of just do mine as a flow. It's hard for me to stick to the exact same script every time because I'm just kind of not built that way. So I will do it based on that client that I see, and it also matters whether they're local or long distance as well. Who else do we have here that I know is out there pitching though? I know our June pitches. I know Anthony pitches. Who else do I see? Wanda. Let me see. I'm gonna pull on somebody here. One of you guys that's out there talking to companies here. If you can't talk right now, just let me know. Hey, Arjun, you available?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, brother, I ain't seen you in a minute. You doing good?
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. Been busy
good.
with this trucking companies. So I apologize. I haven't been on it. So today I put it on my calendar that I got to be on it. So I got on.
Look at that. You got on and got called on as soon as you got on. How about that? Hey, is there, I know you heard Sharanda talk about, what she says, and, you've heard us talk about this before. You've been on the call. Are you still doing the same thing when you're talking to these new companies that you're going in or working as a field trainer with some of these people in the marketplace? Is the approach still the same for you? Is it still?
Absolutely. Yeah. I same for me. I use the same wordings or script that Lamar has, but I have changed it a little bit because my best practice is that I look at the market, see how it is, I talk to a lot of trucking company owners and I see what their pain points are right now. And, because of the way this market is, the drivers are hard to come by, and especially the experienced drivers hard to come by. So how to retain what they have. So, my pitch is around Ronald Lame, Mr. Lamar's, and the only thing I put in is that, hey, how would you like us to retain your drivers? You know, because companies have policies where if the driver get 2 citations or a maximum of 3 citations, they'll let go. The company that I consult with, they have a policy of 2 tickets. If they get 2 speeding tickets, they're done, they're out. You know, so when I go in, I usually pitch that, hey, how can we retain good drivers? And I pitch in and say, we have this program which will protect your drivers and reduce the amounts of citations, because, you know, the chances are, you know, every ticket has to be fought. And if they have this resources where they can send the ticket in, and while they're on the road making money, and that way we can fight those tickets, you know, most of the time the outcome can be different if they use an attorney. So that's how I get in. But I always look at the talking points of, you know, what's going on in the market. What is it that they have the pain on? And that's what I bring up. And they're like, man, yeah, this is what the issue I have is, number one, my drivers are speeding, or if, you know, their driver managers are pushing them to, you know, get those loads delivered quicker, and they're speeding, and they get those tickets and violations. That's how they get in trouble. We did I did a survey with this big company, and I just put out that, hey, what is the experience level where they're getting citations and accidents? And most companies that I did the survey with, they said any driver that's been with them more than 5 years, they are the ones getting into violations. They are the ones who are getting speeding tickets. They are the ones, because they're compliance. They've been driving for so long, now they're forgetting about the basics, and now they're getting these citations. And those are the people that need our program. And these are the seasoned drivers, and they know that when they get those citations, they need to fight those, you know, because they don't want anything on their driver's license. So that's what I pitch, and I see where they at, and go from there. But I kind of see what's going on in the marketplace to engage that business owner.
No, that's good. I like the idea of, because I do surveys, but I've never done them in Legal Shield. I've never surveyed my potential customer like that. That's a really good idea. And what are you doing to do that? Are you using like Google Forms or Jot Form, or what are you using?
Just I use Google Forms, and there's only like 3 questions on it. You know, not much, just 3 questions. And now, you know, the companies have a communication system where they send those by email, and the drivers will respond and saying, oh yeah, you know, this is what's going on, and this is how many tickets they got, you know, in the past year. And then we look at those numbers, and you'll be amazed what kind of results you get. And I put it in as helping the company to see the bigger picture, because the owners will be like, yeah, I just fired my drivers. Well, why are you firing your drivers? If you can retain them and train them, you know, you're going to get, you know, more out of the drivers, right? So if we put out a survey, because they're going to say, oh, I'm not interested in this, my drivers won't get it. Well, how about we put a survey out? 3 questions. It's not going to cost you anything. We're just going to give you 3 questions, send it out to your driver, and see what kind of response you get. Drivers will respond to that. They will respond to the survey because they want to, you know, engage. And that's where you come in and say, hey, look, you know, your driver, this is where you at. And then that's how I kind of introduce Legal Shield and do the presentations.
Good stuff, man. I like that. I like that. So good takeaway, guys. And if you don't mind, I don't know whether you got any secret sauce there. Can you let us know those 3 questions, or would you rather not? I mean, you know, I know how it is.
I asked them that there's 3 questions I asked. The first one I ask is, what's your top 10 drivers, and how long they've been. So they'll say, okay, we have, you know, 15 drivers. And I said, okay, just 15 drivers that they're your senior drivers. Ask them how fast they go, without any repercussion. You know, what's the speed limit that they drive? What are the setbacks? Do they like to drive in the daytime, or do they like to drive in the nighttime? And number 3, last 2 years, if they got any citation or accidents. And those are the three questions I ask.
Gotcha.
Because they either they're gonna say that be honest or not be honest. They're gonna answer or not answer. But out of those 15, if 8 comes back and says, yeah, I got 2 citations, last year, most companies have a matrix. Sometimes the owner is going to be, hey, I have the matrix. What kind of questions do you have? And I say, I have just 3 questions. How long they've been driving? What's the last time they got a citation, a speeding citation or an accident? And what's the last time they got a training, right? And then they would have a matrix, because most of the companies will have matrices where they monitor their drivers, because they can pull up a driver and they can see how many citations they got, violations they got, how many accidents they got. Or I would be asking them, whoever you fired, from the job, can you tell us, why they got let go? Was it because of a violation, because of an accident? Because if a driver gets into an accident, there is a matrix that they use. If they get an accident, which is a fender bender, less than 5,000, they would get a write-up. If it's more than 5,000 and it's a little bigger accident, then they would get a second write-up and they're out. And if they get a major accident, they're done. So they would give you a matrix, say, okay, out of let's say there's 15 drivers in a company. Out of 15, 4 of them had pretty bad accidents, or 2 of them had pretty bad accidents. 3 of them were fender benders. And then we had 6 of them that got, citations, speeding citation or any kind of violation past 6 months. And then I would say, okay, if we had this program in place and they got trained properly and we got the Legal Shield program in place so they can protect themselves, this would have helped avoid that, because most of the time drivers are stressed out. They haven't been home. You got to understand the market is hard right now. If you look at the market, the trucking market is down right now. So there's more miles that the driver have to drive to make their money. So that means they are driving. They are, they don't have to get those loads. And so sometimes they're under stress. They got to pay bills. Those kind of things do happen. So when they have this Legal Shield program and they know they're protected, and if there's a citation, they can send it in, or they might even have a question. They might have a legal question for themselves, right? They use the program. So the company that I have, I get calls from the drivers all the time, and they'll say, hey, I got I got out of an apartment. I'm going to another apartment because I'm moving. The apartments are not giving me my deposit back. Can Legal Shield help out? Yes, absolutely. Call your law firm. They'll help out. I signed a contract on a vehicle, for a lease vehicle. Now I can't make those payments. Can I get out of it? They have tax questions. Most drivers have tax questions. They have garnishment. They're getting audited by the IRS. Those kind of things really help those drivers out. And that's what's the stress reliever it is. So I bring those examples out and make sure the business owner or trucking companies owners know that, hey, we're there to help genuinely to keep their drivers, because end of the day, drivers are more important for the trucking companies, because without drivers, those trucks are not going anywhere.
Good stuff. Yeah, hopefully you guys got a lot of that. That was really good. I appreciate that. For those of y'all who don't know who Arjun is he's one of the, I guess, within the last 12 months, got his 50K ring with PPLSI. Was the majority of that trucking?
CDLP, yeah.
CDLP.
Majority of the CDLP.
Good stuff. And you do a lot of field training on the West Coast, California area, correct?
Yes.
All right. Didn't want to say nothing wrong. Hey, Sharon, I'm gonna call on somebody else, but I'm gonna Sharon, you got anything to add to it? Any conversation here with this?
No, I mean, AJ summed it up.
AJ summed it up. Good stuff. It looks like Timothy Whetstone has a question. Timothy, go on, unmute yourself, brother.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, young man, for that explanation. But you mentioned training. Can you elaborate on the training that you were referring to for the drivers?
So companies have internal trainings that they are provided when they do a violation. It's their first violation, because you got to understand the drivers are getting monitors because there's speed sensors in the trucks. So they get monitored. So if they want speed, they have an internal training that they provide for not speeding, right? So, and some of them don't have that. So I would, say, hey, okay, if you don't have the training, there's companies out there like JJ Keller and Smithson's, and they provide those trainings, and you might want to get those trainings for the drivers to, to reduce their speeding. So sometimes they don't, and I kind of give them a referral, So my thing is to help those trucking companies to get all the resources, not just Legal Shield. And if they need something, I know somebody in that marketplace that does that, and I'll refer them to them. Say, hey, go to this person if those are the services that you need. So besides the Legal Shield, I do a lot of referrals. That's why I get a lot of referrals, because I have network partners that I work with. And when they need those services, I tell them that, hey, go to this gentleman or lady to help you out in that situation. But the trainings, what I was talking about, is some companies do have internal trainings, and that's how you can also get into orientation. This is, when you mention training, you say, hey, do you guys have any training? Yes, we do have orientation. Or no, we don't have orientations. But if they do have orientation, this is a golden nugget. If you can get into that orientation, that's gold. That's what I was told by Mr. Lamar. He said the day you get into their orientation and they let you in the orientation for 10, 15 minutes to talk about Legal Shield to the new drivers, that's golden right there. Does that answer your question?
Good stuff. Good stuff. And that's something else good too that I like that you said. It's the business part of what we do. So most of what you said here was about how you're dealing with the company, how you're finding out what their needs are, right? Going back to those KRAs that we talked about. You weren't on for the KRAs, but just the 7 KRAs of sales. But you said something that's really business oriented, and that's the difference between you being a salesman or a saleswoman or being a business owner, and understanding that you got to take care of the whole client. I've heard Sharana talk about that too, taking care of the whole client. That means you don't walk in the front door and say, oh, I see that you can use our services, sell them the services, but you see other parts of their company that need help and you don't offer because you're just going in there to sell your stuff and get out of there and go to the next company. And while I understand why a person's mind might be there, keeping right long-term thinking is, if this company shuts down because of something that has nothing to do with what we offer, you still lose a customer, right? So if you have other resources that you can turn them on to, not only does that make you a resource, but some of those resources that you turn that client onto, well, then that resource then has a client that they do that for somewhere else, that they say, hey, my client that has this from me, they don't have the legal service. So that's like you're giving them business, just sometimes giving you business. So taking care of that whole client is really, really important. We don't talk a lot about that. I know Sharana has in passing, just doing her talking about a specific thing, she'll say that, but we've never really had a full topic on here about that. And that's really about being a business owner that understands that when you've got clientele, you make sure your clientele is good as much as you can, because that's your client. You want them to remain to be a client, especially in a long-term situation like a legal program that you get paid residual for life if they have the membership. So you want them to always have this membership, which means you want them to always be in business. So doing things like that might be helpful. Hey, Sharana, let me ask you a quick question. Are there resources like that you offer to your other company, like training and stuff like that? Do you do anything like that?
I do, and what AJ was talking about is actually corrective training. When they get those violations, by law, they have to train the drivers, because if they get an audit and they haven't trained the driver, they'll get fined. So it's corrective training that he's speaking of. Like, those drivers get those speeding violations. If they can't prove that they train that driver after he got that violation, they can get fined for that if they go in an audit. So by law, they have to do some type of training. That's why they have safety meetings. And that's why we're always trying to get into those meetings, because they have to do that. And when we come in, like he said, you hear Alan talk about it, Lamar, you hear all the trainers talk about whoever presenting, like they always talk about, they like to go after the company does their training, because the company is actually whooping up on the drivers, and we come in with the solutions to put all that out to say, hey, we have it, right? Because of what we offer. But, what AJ was speaking of is that corrective training that they have to do, that they should be doing. And, like he said, um, giving a company other resources. I always train associates that, even though we know they need what we have, because we've done the research, we've, looked them up. But at the end of the day, they don't know that we're calling to offer them something, and they could have something else on their mind that is worse, whether, it's the violations and we know we have the cure for the violations, or something the violations cause them to have, whether it's the lack of drivers, where they've lost the drivers or they fired the drivers because of the violation. And so like AJ said, maybe he knows somebody that does driver recruitment. So he would say, hey, let's connect to this person. Maybe they can help find drivers for you. Or companies are always looking for cheaper insurance, but it doesn't work that way. So you might have other insurance, referral partners, but you let them do that. And so because they have all types of things that they need, and to them that's important than what we're offering, because they didn't know we were going to call them that day, remember? We know they got a problem, they need us, but they don't know that, and they may have something else going on. And so instead of AJ saying, well, I have Legal Shield, he could say, well, I have a partner that can help you with whatever they say their problem is. And now he's gained a friend, or gained some type of trust, because he helped them solve what they thought was most important. And that's normally how I've learned to just be a resource in the community versus going in with the hard sell.
And you know what, Mr. Dunbar, she brought up a good point, is insurance. So when you're looking at your CSA scores, right, for a company, if the CSA scores are high, it's likely that they're losing their liability insurance. That's huge for a trucking company. That's why they panic, because if their CSA scores are high and the insurance is looking at that because of various violations or accidents, they're likely not to get their liability insurance renewed. And when the liability insurance, if they're prospecting a liability insurance, the liability insurance company will come in and say, okay, what kind of preventive programs do you have as a company that you provide to your drivers as a resource to curb this CSA issue, right? So they're going to say, oh yeah, we have a training program for the drivers, we have coaching for our drivers. But then if they have Legal Shield, and I've told my clients that, hey, make sure you mention about Legal Shield, that we provide Legal Shield for our drivers to fight those tickets. That's huge. That is huge, because if the insurance company can see that, oh yeah, they do have a Legal Shield plan, or some kind of a plan that will help the drivers fight those tickets, that means less violations or less tickets, or the tickets are going to be fought. So it's kind of like an assurance for the liability insurance. So I was invited to a liability insurance conference for this company, and they were asking these questions, and what kind of, what is it that you guys have? You guys have your CSS score high. What are you guys doing to bring those down for us to give you the liability insurance? And that's what they mentioned, that, hey, we have these trainings. And then they looked at me and say, hey, can you tell something a little bit about Legal Shield? So I explained them how Legal Shield works, how it's going to help the drivers, how it's going to protect the drivers and the company. And end of the day, they got that liability insurance in the last minute, because it's really hard for insurance companies to get companies on board for liability insurance when their CSS scores are very high.
Important. So you said something again. You and Sharana both actually said something again that brings me to two different points. One, Sharanda talked about building that rapport. Again, guys, I keep going back to these KRAs so that you guys will go back to them yourself and look at those 7 KRAs, because if you're doing those, you're probably going to close more deals. If you're prospecting, if you're building rapport, if you're understanding the need of the client, right? If you're answering, if you're presenting persuasively, if you're answering the objective patiently, if you're closing the sale, if you're asking for referrals and resales, those are the 7 KRAs. And they just mentioned quite a few of them in both of their conversations of those 7. But this goes also back to the conversation that we've been having for 3 or 4 years about being in Legal Shield as a business. There's still too many people in Legal Shield as themselves with the Social Security number and saying that I'm just a Legal Shield independent associate. And you can do a little bit more of what Sharanda and Arjun is talking about right now, because here's the big picture on what they're talking about. If I am like me, I'm in legal. I have 2 agreements with Legal Shield, both of my business agreements, right? So let's take my Oceanside Benefits Group. If I am Oceanside Benefits Group as a company and I'm in Legal Shield with the EIN number, now if Sharanda does training, if Sharanda does corrective training, if Sharanda does anything else, data queue, if Sharanda does audits, if Sharanda does any of those things, I can now contract Sharanda and say, you know what, Sharanda, whenever I run into a company that's having issues outside of just the ticket fighting aspect that Legal Shield offers, can I give them your information? What kind of fees do you charge them so I can at least have that in my mind when I'm talking to them? Or should I just shoot them directly over to you, because that's going to be determined by the size of the company, those other things. Sharanda may say, you don't need to know any of that information because that's going to keep changing. Just let them know that I handle those things. She can give me a sheet with a couple of bullet points that says, this is what I do. Now I'm pitching to Dave, right? Dave is a company, he's got a trucking company, I'm talking to him, and he's telling me, well, I'm having these issues with that. Now I said, look, my company, I offer a program that helps the drivers with their tickets. I also have somebody that I work with that I contract with, and she handles audits. She handles corrective training. She does these other things. I'm going to go ahead and put you in touch with her as well so that y'all can get that worked out, because maybe you need to deal with that first and then get enrolled in the membership afterwards, right? Now I'm pushing that client on to Sharanda. Let Sharanda handle that client, right? And then Sharanda can push that client back to me when that stuff is done. And now, boom, I go ahead and enroll in my Legal Shield program. It doesn't matter whether you know somebody who does trucking insurance. It doesn't matter whether you know any other resource that they would need. If you know that companies need a resource, create some kind of agreement with that company. And when you're operating as a business, now you are truly offering several things to this logistics company. You're not a one-stop shop. You're not a one-stop shop. And now you can still go on and talk about the small business plan for the logistics company. So now is this making sense, guys? Now you're coming in there with more to offer. You got partners. You don't seem like this little one-man show or one-woman show that's coming in there and all you want to do is jam a legal plan down their throat because you read their safety score. Now, I know that that's what we're here to do. But again, guys, the 7 KRAs tell us that we need to build rapport, right? That we need to know how to speak to these people and find out what it is they need and give them what they need within reason. And when you do things as an umbrella company, that's how you build an empire. This is how you build a true book of business, by being able to say, no, I offer more than just a legal program, right? And you still got other things, right? You still can go in there and say, hey, look, at some point, hey, look, I need to make sure that your guys are safe on the road with your identity. Identity theft happens to truck drivers very frequently because they're going state to state. They're using their cars in different places. Let's make sure we get them enrolled in that too. So you keep coming back. You bouncing them in and out of your business partners that you work with. And then you keep coming back and taking another hit. Small business plan, identity theft plan, right? Family plan. So it's a good little mix up, and you're becoming a resource, which means they trust you and they'll buy it. They'll convert over easier because you keep helping them out. Because guess what happens when Sharanda helps this trucking company with an issue that they're having? Even though Sharanda helped them, they still feel like I was the resource. I walked in and pitched that company, and I'm the one turned them over to Sharanda. So while they may be glad that Sharanda did that and paid her to do it, they still are looking at me as a resource, if that makes any sense, guys. So I want you guys to think about that kind of in a bigger aspect of what you're doing instead of just these one-offs in your entire bit, and cut some kind of deal. Like, I mean, if I send Sharanda business, like I'll send Sharanda business, I'm not looking for nothing when I send her business. But because I'm doing it because me and Sharanda best friends. So I just give her business because I know she got a logistics company and I'm giving her business. But if I was doing it with somebody in the aspect of, this is my company, I'm gonna pitch you business, I will be saying, pitch me some business back, or when I send you a customer, give me 10%, give me 20% of the sale. I'm gonna send customers to you. I'm running into clients that need your services all the time anyway. Be businessmen and businesswomen. Now you got more than one source of income when you're going to pitch a company. You're not just getting a commission from Legal Shield and residual. Now you're getting 20% when you send them to somebody to get data queued and get dealing with audits and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what Sharanda charges for that kind of stuff, but I'm sure 10 or 20% of what she charges would be a decent amount of money for me to get paid. And I'm sure she wouldn't mind getting 5 or 6 extra clients from me. Does that make sense? So just keep that in mind when you're building a business. It's not just about that one check. How much can you do without doing something totally different? Is that fair? If I'm already doing it, but I don't do that particular service, somebody does it that I can do an affiliate with and get a piece of the pie, right? So think about that as you're building out, and this is why it's good to be knowledgeable on your clients as well when it comes to that. So Sharanda, Arjun, anything else?
Learning is very important. I'm still learning from the market, so I have resources that I use. Freight Waves, it's on LinkedIn. It's called Freight Waves, and they have Tuesday they have a podcast, and then I believe on Thursdays they have podcasts that I listen to every time, because they give you all the updates, what's going on in the trucking industry, from either from flatbeds to dry goods to reefers, those kind of things. So it gives you an insight of the industry, because when you're talking to a business owner or trucking owner, they gauge you, they see how much to go forward. So if you know a little bit about what's going on in the industry, that will really help you get in the door easier, because now what's going on and what's up and up. And so I would recommend that. I would recommend some magazines if you subscribe to some trucking magazines and see what's going on. So I read those all the time. And then if you have associations, like a trucking association or trucking club, I would get in it and start learning, because you never know who you're going to connect with, right? And then the doors open up.
Where else did y'all hear that advice from? You heard that same advice from John Hoffman over there on the West Coast as well. He talked about Freight Waves. He talks about getting a subscription for a magazine, subscribing to some of these newsletters. Knowledge and content. You want to grow your business, knowledge and content, and collaboration. Find you some people to collaborate with. That's a soft push on Sharanda. Like I was kind of using her for an example, but I'm just telling you, Sharanda knows what she's doing. Partner with her. See how many problems that she can solve for these companies that you're dealing with, so you can be a resource. And partner up. I mean, and that's a good idea to partner up with Sharanda anyway, because she knows what she's doing throughout all of this stuff anyway. So why not be partnered up with somebody that's doing this business and understands logistics in and out like that? So I mean, it's a win-win. So Sharanda, anything on your end?
No, I mean, AJ's just sharing, definitely, just sharing the stuff. So, as we say, we have to be a student of the industry, student of our business. And that's what he's, that's, the information he's dropping. So definitely, knowledge is power, and it definitely make you feel, because the moment the prospect feel like they know more than you, a lot of times you lose the prospect, because they feel like their experience in years gives them the up on you. Who are you to tell me I've been driving for 20 years, but you've been doing it wrong for 20 years and not understanding for 20 years. So, I mean, so you have to keep your posture, and the posture comes from knowing, the information, because the moment you know, and I mean, it's okay. I mean, you learn, like AJ say, you learn, but still you gotta show some level of knowledge. I mean, I learned from conversations, but still, I, kind of kept my posture, like, because we are the expert when it comes to the product, right? And that's what we're actually really trying to sell. So we're the expert there, but you have to let them know, they can teach you the industry, they can teach you things about the industry, but that doesn't necessarily mean 20 years that they're an expert, right? I mean, especially that owner operator you're talking to, and his scores are over the national average. So that he's either not doing something right, or he doesn't, he doesn't understand, or he just doesn't care. So, but definitely, the knowledge, posture brings the knowledge. And you don't have to know everything about everything, but to have a good conversation or a decent conversation to show your value proposition, you got to have some knowledge outside of PPLSI, the CDLP plan.
Yeah, definitely got to have some knowledge outside of what we offer. So guys, it is 9:42. Of course, there's a blitz tomorrow. So make sure you plug into the blitz tomorrow. Make sure you plug into Sharanda Ivy's Thursday night accountability call. If you're a part of that audience, if you plugged into that, that's going to be happening Thursday. We'll see you guys back again here next week on Monday to talk some more CDLP. I almost want to say thank you, our special guest, Arjun, who we ain't seen in a while, working with Sharanda Ivy and myself here to help you guys out. So hopefully this has been some great information for you guys. I put a couple of the things that Arjun said in a chat so that you have them there. And people on YouTube, I will drop it in YouTube on YouTube as well. So you see it on freightways.com and things like that. So you guys have a fantastic rest of your night. Have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you guys here next week, Monday, on our CDLP.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.
All right.
Good
Good
night.
seeing you, AJ.
Hey, nice seeing you too.
It's great seeing how
Yeah.
much you improved. Great job, buddy.
Nice, AJ. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
night,
AJ.
everyone.
Happy birthday to your son.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, happy birthday. I didn't know about that birthday.
Happy birthday. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
the information.
His son.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You can buy us a cocktail in North Carolina.
Yep, I'll be there. I'll be there at the bar.
She's a veganist. She don't drink cocktails. She only vegan.
Oh yes, there's vegan alcohol. Don't have no animals in it.
Hey, if vegans couldn't drink alcohol, it'd be a lot less vegans.
You got that right.
Oh man, they'd be like, I'm almost vegan. I drink alcohol. I'm not gonna stop drinking alcohol.
Oh my God. That's funny.
Good
It's
night.
funny too, because my friend told me that a friend of mine told me that she was talking to me about some vegan wine, and when she said it, she said, I said, vegan wine. I said, why they got vegan wine? I said, why would you need vegan wine? Why can't a vegan drink wine the way it is?
Yeah, I don't get that either.
I don't know what kind of wine you drinking, but the wine I drink don't got no animals in it.
Mm-mm.
Oh boy. Yeah, man.
Yep.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.
Good night. YouTube, you guys have a good night as well.
All right, good night.
AJ,